Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. We had a discussion at Zagazig Medical School on the 20th of May. And the title of the discussion was a comparative study between inhalation and anesthesia using sevoflurane and total intravenous anesthesia by propofol in patients with elevated liver enzyme. The attending board was made of me, Muhammad Anwar RIFKY, and the Professor Samia Masoud. And also we were welcoming our colleague from Asr Al Aini, Dr. Abir Ahmed Muhammad. First of all, I would like to, of course, thank all the colleagues who accomplished in the work of this thesis. I like to add the most important findings in our study. We studied the difference between the liver enzyme before and after the operation at different times. And we came to a result that the enzymes were much increased in the sevoflurane group than the total intravenous anesthesia. And it was shown by the statistic information which is exposed in front of you, as you can see. The addition nice information about the subject that he added what we call the propofol, which is a version of propofol. It was made in China, and as we see, the group on the right side at the level 2 is being substituted by a cyclic ring. This makes the molecule less soluble, less lipophilic, and it makes it more specific to attend or to be attached to the receptors. The second nice thing about the point that we found two drugs that strangely can affect the action of sevoflurane. One of them is a drug used in joint problems, and the other one is used in treatment of the hair lice. So both of drugs, one of them increases the efficacy of sevoflurane, and the other one decreased its efficacy. The nice additional information I had added at the end of the session was what we call the ischemic reperfusion injury. Of course, ischemic reperfusion injury results from both hypoxemia, first of all, during an ischemic episode, and cytotoxic events during reperfusion. So we have two incidents occurring. So whenever reperfusion occurs, it induces the production of highly reactive chemicals that cause necrosis or apoptosis. And I had shown the word apoptosis in the lower section of the slide, showing that is a self-destruction by the cells, suicidal effect. So whenever reperfusion occurs, it induces this production of the higher active chemicals as superoxides, hydrogen peroxide, and hydroxyl radicals after relatively brief ischemic interval. Most of the injury is due to reperfusion, but if the ischemia is profounded, the effect of ischemia will predominate. And this is the explanation of the word apoptosis. The ratio of the amino transfers, whether it's ACT or ALT, the ratio between them gives us a hint about the type of the disease. Of course, most of the patients, whenever they have injured liver, most of the enzymes are increased, apart from several situations where we find a decrease in fluoride liver failure, where the liver cells fail to induce these enzymes. Strangely, though the liver is affected, yet the enzymes are not increased. And the late stage of hepatitis C, we find the enzyme is much less than expected. Abnormal liver enzymes results has been found to be in the form of 4% in normal individuals and 36% of psychiatric patients. So You can find patients with elevated enzyme, yet they are not diseased. This percent of people have only 1% showing symptoms. So in such a type of patient, no need to repeat advanced lab for them. Of course, plasma clearing of endocyanin green is the most commonly used to access hepatic blood flow, and we'll show later on what are the blood supply of the liver. Of course, whenever I use a transesophageal echocardiography through a probe, we must be caring of such patient because they have varices, so we may injure the enlarged veins. Nowadays, we can perform a sonography polar plates in the nearby the liver to estimate the hepatic blood flow. With hallucin, as we know, the mechanism of hepatic damage is through the immunological effect. This fluorine is metabolized to small but variable extent by cytochrome P450. We call it 2E1 in the liver to generate a trifluoroacetyl chloride. So whenever I find a trifluoroacetyl, we can put in our mind that they may initiate an immunological response, reactive intermediate. These intermediates combine with multiple inter-cytoplasmic proteins such as 58 kilopascal, this is what it's called, endoplasmic reticulum protein, and another type of cytochrome itself, forming potentially immunological adducts. Adducts means these are compound informed by the addition reaction and inducing immune response. Autoantibiotics, we find autoantibodies. Cytochrome 2E1 and cytochrome and other form have been recently reported after this fluorine anesthesia. Though only 0.1% of this fluorine is metabolized, but in such circumstances, even a small amount of biotransformation can induce immunological metabolites, causing hepatotoxicity. In conclusion of a study, the study is made, anesthesiologists should be aware of this potential complication in morbidly obese patients following this fluorine anesthesia. Of course, sevoflurane can induce malignant hyperthermia in patients with ryanodine receptors, and the other types of receptor called dihydropyridine receptors. These variant receptor, whenever they are abnormal, they fail to sequestrate calcium. You know that whenever a contraction occurs, calcium is being released and is being taken up by these receptors. But in such circumstances, there is failure of reuptake, and this causes what we call the fluorescein hepatitis. Of course, whenever I induce anesthesia by the vital capacity, of course, the maximum air which can be expired after maximum inspiration of induction of 8% of sevoflurane. You take a deep breath, combination with 1 liter of oxygen and 2 liters of oxygen. We can obtain a loss of consciousness followed by 30 seconds of giving intravenous injection of remifentanil. So this is a way of inducing rapid induction by sevoflurane. The inspired concentration, of course, whenever I begin slowly in inducing the increase, till I reached 8%, and then I began to decrease. Whenever I find that there is diversion of the pupils, I keep the concentration at 4. Whenever it reaches 2, I will find that the pupils are in the midline. Presentius is a type of propofol. We call it Propofen 2%, which the FDA has permitted for emergency use under the emergency use. So we have a propofol of 2%. We must put in our mind that this is a version present with a much more concentration of what we notice. Sorry, I'm sorry. Of course, as you know, the contraindications of sevoflurane. Of course, there is if there is sensitive to eggs or peanuts or soya bean lecithin hypersensitivity. Formulation, of course, the sodium metabisulfite, which is introduced in most of the local anesthetics, which is antibacterial, can induce allergic reactions. In animal studies, this is a nice thing about propofol. They found that there is a depressed in the dorsal horn neurons in the spinal cord, which inhibit the phosphorylation of N-lambda receptor subunit and inhibit the cannabinoid receptors. All this help propofol inducing its effect. In human volunteers, hypnotic doses of propofol at 3.5 microgram per millimeter decrease pain-related regional blood flow to the thalamus and the anterior cingulate area cortex. So whenever I decrease the blood flow, definitely it will decrease the incidence of pain. Propofol significantly depressed pain scores by 40%. And areas of hyperalgesia and allodynia. Hyperalgesia, of course, this is much appreciation of pain. And allodynia means that the non-painless non-painless effect is considered pain in some patient. Work of propofol professionally binding to the NCINE. I wrote down what's the meaning of NCIN1, which causes a hyperpolarization effect, which increases the entrance of chlorine. Of course, this effect has an anti-hyperalgesic effect. Of course, as my colleague mentioned in his thesis, that propofol has an anti-inflammatory effect. Of course, we must put in our mind that whenever I use propofol for a long period, more than 5 days, I must put in mind that the zinc level may be increased, decreased. I'm sorry. So we must supplement. Some forms of propofol contain the benzyl alcohol, which can cause hypotension, metabolic acidosis, and kernicterus in neonates. Of course, whenever I use propofol, I must avoid the abrupt discontinuation. I must decrease the level of the propofol slowly so that I'll avoid the drawbacks of emergency agitation and so forth. Of course, we must put in our mind that propofol is being excreted in the milk, so we must put in our mind whenever anesthetizing patient with a pregnant with a feeding mother. Of course, as we said before, the ischemic reperfusion effect, of course, we can call it ischemic preconditioning. This or a part of occurring in the liver can occur in the heart. In the heart, what's the meaning of that? That whenever there is an area of ischemia in the heart, this area is surrounded outwards by an area which is liable to be ischemic. we call it stunning. So sevoflurane was proved apart being helpful in the liver situation, can be helpful in such situation occurring in the heart. Then, of course, I think that is manufactured by Russia at 1951. Has a coefficient of 0.11. I remember it's almost 0.14. So it has a very low blood gas partition coefficient. That means the induction is very speed. It's almost similar to Propofol. It increases cerebral blood perfusion, but it has no effect on the hepatic blood flow. Of course, whenever there is hepatic failure, of course, we have an increase in the level of ammonium. So we must adjust the pH to prevent alkalemia, because it enhances the absorption. Recently, they found a version of the transaminases enzyme called number 2, which is present in the liver and other parts of the human body. This is a version of propofol. It's called Fresenius Propofen. 2% is used sometimes in emergency, but the point that it has a concentration of 2%. Contraindication, as we had said before, as we mentioned, I think this before. I'm sorry. As we said, of course, whenever I planning to induce transesophageal echocardiography, I must be careful of the varices. Of course, the child Trocott Poo classification of liver affection is classified according to ABC, and these are correlated with the model of end liver disease, representing 10 to 14 and more than 14. All these are correlated to the ABC of the classification. And this is a hint about the acinus, where you can find the central vein and clusters of liver cell, and you can see the sinusoid blood supply, which is different. It is a sort of a capillary, but different from the capillaries. And we find the lymphatic system entering the portal branch, the portal, and the hepatic supplying the area. So this is called an acinus, and we will have a look on the portal lobule. We can see the portal lobule, and this triangle joining the three central veins are called the portal lobule. So this is a lobule hexagonal figure, as we can see, and at the sides we can see the supply of this portal view. Of course, the volume of the distribution in liver affection is increased by the presence of ascites. So this means that I must increase the dose of the non-deployed muscle relaxin at the beginning. We will show that there is a less effect, so that we ought to increase. Of course, oxazepam and lorazepam can be used in liver affection patient because they are glucurinated in the liver. Induction, of course, etimidate and thiopental decrease hepatic blood flow, but ketamine does not affect. Of course, there are other diseases that increase, especially the AST level, as polymyelitis, as an acute myocardial infarction. All this can increase apart from the liver. Many laboratories use high upper limit of normal value as 55. Imagine that, yeah. Drug-induced injury of the liver is categorized either intrinsic or idiosyncratic. Intrinsic means the drug by its dose is capable to induce the effect, but idiosyncratic, as fluorescein hepatitis, it's inconsistent in relation to the dose. So this is the difference between the two types. Of course, we all know the fulminating effect of hepatotoxicity of hallucin hepatitis, where there's elevated of enzyme and creatinine and so forth. And we find the incidence around 1 to 35,000. And we have a high rate of mortality, maybe 70 to 70%. So this is why it's almost been omitted in anesthesia. This is the figure showing the supply of the liver. This is the portal circulation where it supplies the splenic venous system, which has a pressure, as you can see, beginning from this is the artery, of course, beginning of 80 and decreasing till it reaches the venous system, and this is the sinusoids. So this blood comes from the intestine, reaching through the liver sinusoids to be supplied and returning back through the hepatic veins. And this is a case report where a Caucasian woman has been subjected to a hepatic liver failure after being given 540 milligrams of propofol. Imagine that. She developed a fatty degeneration of 90% of the liver parenchymal while 1 week after the surgery, and she was transferred to the transplant unit for liver transplant. So, of course, we must put in our mind there is a very rare incidence. Of course, this incidence occurs also with patients subjecting by the effect of sevoflurane also. You see, now we come to know what's the chemical structure of sevoflurane. As you can see, we have 3 carbon atoms. Each we always enumerate the first one by the active or the active or the functional compounds attached to. So the carbon one is attached to 3 fluoride atoms, and the second one is also attached, and the third one is attached to methoxy fluoromethoxy propane. Why did we call it propane? Because it's made of 3 carbon atoms. And why it's ane? Because there is no double bonds. There is only 1 bond. So we call it at the one situation, we call 1 1 1. And then at the third situation, we call 3 3 3. Hexafluoro means what? There is 6 atoms of fluorine at the first and the third part. This is how we enumerate this molecule. This is the normal figure of detoxification of fluorine, where fluorine is being subjected or removed, giving what we call the hexafluoroisopropanol. And then after that is being attached to chloronic acid to be sent by the kid. So this is the normal distribution. But sometimes this hexafluoroisopropanol is being changed into, as we said before, the trifluoroacetyl protein. So this is an immunological compound that may initiate the process of toxicity effect. Now we come to some points of the statistics. First of all, the chi-square test. Chi is the 22nd letter of the Greek alphabet. You see, it looks like an X, but the other part of the line, it's almost inclined. What does it mean? It means that the O means the observed and the E means the expected over the expected. I'm sorry, I cannot remove this this part, so I'm hiding the this part. So this is the equation to give the chi-square. What's the meaning of that? How can I be sure this is a significant statistic whenever I want to compare? So it puts in our mind always that whenever I do an experiment, I put two minds in points in my mind. First of all, what we call the null hypothesis. Null hypothesis, that means there is no significant difference between both groups. Suppose I'm going to make a difference between or study between two groups. There is no difference. If there is difference, it's a matter of chance. So this is the first thing. The second thing is the alternative hypothesis where we reject. We call it H1. We reject this first hypothesis, and we can say that there is a really significant difference between two. So as an example, suppose I'm going to flip a coin. The flip of the coin, of course, we know that it will yield either a tail or a head, you see. So suppose I flip, I put in my mind that I ought to have at least 50% head and 50% tail. This is what I expect. But suppose I got 32 tails and the rest of it 70 or 68 tails. So is this significant or not? So we put all these figures in this equation, and we yield a figure. This figure is being transferred to a special table. This table has columns and rows. These two intersect to a number. So, okay, how can I select this row or this column? I always go to the magic statistic number, which is 5%. So I put the number I want to investigate under the column of the 5%, and on the row I use what we call the degree of freedom. What's the meaning of degree of freedom? I have two chances to occur in this flipping. I have two, so I subtract one from the two, so I get one. So in this table, I go to the row of 1 and attach it to the column of the 5%, and I will get a number. This number, if it is more than the 5%, we call it is significant. So whenever this most probably this yield amount, as we said before, it is non-significant. In other words, this flipping I had done, there is nothing wrong with the type of the coin or the way of I am flipping. So this is the way we try to compare two groups to show whether there are a significant difference or there is no. So this is what we call the chi-square, which was invented by what we call someone's Pearson, something like that. So this, he used this in his statistic. Now we have the most nice statistic point, which is the t-test. The t-test, we always use the t-test. What's the meaning of the t-test? First of all, it was invented by Gossett, as we can see, William Gossett. This statistician was asked to compare two fields. He wanted to compare two fields, two barley fields, sha'ir. So they told him, I want to compare those two fields regarding its yielding. I want to see which of them can get more yield. So he wanted to share his statistics with his fellow statisticians. So this company, Janus company, refused. So he had to make this method being called student test. So it's simply a comparison between two set of variants. These are a matter of histogram, as we can see. These histograms are performed to make what we call a bill. So we have, suppose we have two bills, as we can see, it is a comparison between two means. You see, two means. What's the mean of means? The means is the average. We take all the data and we divide, we add them to each other and we divide them by their number. So we'll get a mean. So it is a matter of comparison between two means. But this is a part of the story. The full story that this mean has a variation. It could be in a long way or it be in a transfer way. So this is not right to only to compare the mean. So he had two, as you can see, two figures. These are the data of the field one, and this is the data of the field. So we create what we call the t value. So I put the figures on in this ratio. What I mean, ST is the standard deviation. We can get the standard deviation from the data simply by an equation, and this is the number of the number of the yield on each side with the number one and number two, and we square, first of all, we square the standard deviation. See, so we get a number. This number is being taken to a special table. This table we have, as we said, the columns and rows. We choose the 5%, as we all agree this is the common one used, and then we gain the what we call the degree of freedom. Degree of freedom. I'm going to add the two data. It's 16 and 16. It's around 32. Minus 2 will be 30. So I come to the 30 on the row, and I join the column of 5%. I'll get the number. If this number is more than this one, I can say that there is a significant between two groups. So I will reject this null hypothesis. You see, so we have, first of all, a t value, and then we put in our mind, as long as I have a value, I will consider, is this value related to a null hypothesis state or a rejection of this null hypothesis. These are the figures, other figures showing what was the meaning of one-tailed or two-tailed. One-tailed means that I'm sure that this curve is going to be shifted to one side, but most of the times that share is going to be shifted to two sides. You see, so that if I suppose I use one tail, I may get fallacies. So this is a drawing that shows that what was the meaning of not one tail, two tail test. The second thing, what we call the independent or non-paired. Non-paired, I'm comparing the two fields. I'm comparing. So the paired means that, suppose this field, the second field, I'm going to make an additional statistic among this field. Suppose I'm going to get this field and I'm going to add fertilization, and to show whether this fertilization affected the second group or not. So it is called paired, because I'm doing another additional statistic among the second group. You see, but most probably we use the unpaired. This is what we call the Mann-Whitney test. This is a test between the ranks. What's the meaning of ranks? Suppose I have two sets of data. This data, as you can see, begins here from 3 to 5, and here from 9, I don't know, 4 to 9. So we rank. What's the meaning of rank? That we estimate the lowest and the biggest one as putting them near to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So the least one, I'll put it on nearby the one, and the bigger one, I'm going to put it to the nearby the bigger one. So suppose I put we had two equal numbers on, as you can see. These are being put regularly near 1 and 2, but they are similar to each other. So this 1 and 1, we divided by 2, we find 1.5. See this? So this is a rank. Rank means I'm going to rearrange these numbers according to the descent by putting them as if they're 1, 2, 3, 4 in a regular way. So also this way, as chi-square test, we put in our mind that alpha, which is the rejection area in the tails of the bell shaped of the normal distribution. First of all, the normal distribution, as we said before, of Gosset, we have to have a normal bell distribution. If this distribution of the data is being skewed to the right or the left, we can get fallacy. So in such circumstances, we can use another type of statistics instead of this t-test. So this one, as we said, if the null hypothesis, there is no significance, and H1, which is the rejection of the null hypothesis. So we go to several, as we said, we will rank them, and then we will use the equation, the U statistic, and we'll put the figures we had yield. And for both of data, we'll get two numbers. We'll choose the less one. We suppose we get a 2.0 and the other one 3.5. So we'll take the less one and then go to the special tables. There are 6 and 6. We put the ruler at the 6 and the 6, where the significance is 0.5%, and then we'll get a value. Is if this value and we correlate this value to this number 2. If it's less than the 5%, we can say that it is significant. If it is more, it will yield a null hypothesis. There is no significance. So this is the basis of the Mann-Whitney U test. The last thing, he used the Fisher exact test. This is a simple of this test. We have two types of patient, cancer and healthy, and among this patient we have smoker and non-smoker. So this is the arrangement of the patients among those. Of course, we have a total number, and then from these numbers we can first of all categorize A, B, C, D, suppose, and then we will know the total number of these patients, and then this is the point, how do we imagine the probability. So suppose I have 4 balls named 1, 3, 4, and 2. Two of them are similar in their current. What are the yields that you can gain if you take only 2 of them? So these are the 4 or the 6 possibilities that you can get. The probability can to maybe 2 the same color, as you can see, and then these are the different 4 items that you can get from taking only 2. So we have this is called the 6 of the total. Each of them is the 6 of the total. So this is a figure. This figure we can enumerate each of them by k or small k, and this is the number, and we fulfill this data by these numbers. The nice thing is about it that we are not in need of the free degree of freedom. What's the meaning of the degree of freedom? We always subtract the number 1 from the total number. Why did they call it degree of freedom? The one I am following Mr. Anderson on YouTube. He explained it as suppose I have the number 10 and I want to divide it into 3 items. Suppose I took the first item 4 and the second item 5. So what's left? Only 1. So I'm obliged to use 1 in the third figure if I want to divide the 10 among 3 points. I hope that I accomplished my job. I'm trying to do my best. This was a nice discussion. I gained much. We all gained much from this discussion. I thank Dr. Abir for her nice points, and Dr. Samia. Dr. Abir announced that whenever I'm going to do statistics, and I'm going to do statistics, and I'm going to compare supposed patients, I must put in our mind what I'm going to gain out of it. So this work has been done by several publishers before. So I must put in my point that I'm going to do something not correlated to the others. So she told him that you ought to write that I'm going to do the comparison study between the total intravenous and deep brain in Egyptian patients. So that this may make a difference. And the other point that she mentioned, she said that the patients, you must not be biased to the patient. How can you do a random sample? Random sample that you must each patient put his name and his identification in a special envelope. Nobody knows anything about the envelopes, so that I will not bias to take these patients to be among the total intravenous or the other to the group of fluorescein. So this is an important item whenever I'm going to accomplish a study. I thank you very much. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah wa barakatuh.